Hello.
Hi. Can you see me?
Yes.
Oh. I'm always so bad at this. Okay. Ooh, let's see. Maybe if I open that, I get a little more light. Oh, okay. I'm so vain. Let's see. Make sure I look cute.
You do.
Thank you.
um, so I guess we should start with just saying hello and introducing ourselves.
Oh, okay. You want me to like my teaching bio or my entertainment bio or kind of the
um,
whole thing?
kind of the whole thing with the emphasis of your entertainment bio.
All right. Okay. I am Sharice Robinson. I currently teach film, TV, digital, content writing, producing, directing. The way I got into teaching was I actually started in television. I worked in television for a couple of years as a TV writer for the soap operas. I also used to write for children's TV, and I did that for a few years. Um, and then the soap opera business kind of dried up in New York. It used to be a great start for writers and a great start for writers in New York who could not move to LA, where most of the TV industry is. And literally soaps were just dropping like flies by the time like the 2000s hit. And of course, the two shows I worked on were some of the first to go, which were Port Charles, which was a half-hour spinoff from General Hospital, and then All My Children, which is everybody in the darkest corners of the world know what All My Children is. So now I'm primarily producing stuff independently. I have my own production company in New York City. Um, I make my little short films. I make my own web series, which is actually an audio radio soap opera, which is a throwback to the old days. I help other people produce content. Um, I also have a tech partner. Um, so I'm in on this kind of new social media app, which is for voice, and that's very exciting because I love tech people. I feel like they're go-getters. Like they don't waste time when they want to do something, whereas I feel like entertainment is just this slow grind where I'm amazed movies actually get made.
And which part of your job do you enjoy the most?
Well, I love being a writer. Like I when I went to film school, during the kind of that golden age of the indie '90s independent filmmaker, so many of my classmates wanted to be directors, but I was never one of them. I did not enjoy being on the set. I didn't enjoy people looking to me for the answers. I was perfectly fine with just writing my scripts and going on about my business. But because of the way this industry is, um, I realized that the only way my own work is going to get done is if I direct it myself. There isn't anyone out there, waiting to, direct my feature, or, there isn't like a big, Hollywood agency ready to package my script with an A-list director. So the only way that, my voice will get heard is if I do it myself. But I also too I love teaching. I kind of fell into teaching, not so much accident, but by accident, but sort of. Um, I had just had a baby. Well, he was two by that time, and I was kind of thinking about what was my next step because I was very disillusioned by entertainment in general. And I just got really lucky that I got back-to-back calls from two schools that asked me to come teach literally a week before school started. So I was just like, they were like, here's the syllabus, here's the roster, go. And I realized after that first year, and I had really terrific students that first year, that I really liked it, and I liked being around all of that young energy, where you're just so young and fresh, and you're a go-getter, and you want to go out there and do stuff. And then suddenly I'm like, I want to go out there and do stuff too. So I like that part because, I joke with my husband about how old I'm getting, but I always say, yes, I'm getting older, but my students stay the same age, so that keeps me perpetually young.
And do you think, as a Black woman, that has helped or hindered your experience?
It's it's tough to say. Like, I try not to engage in like conspiracy theories. Like they're against Black people in entertainment. But let's face it, they are against Black people in entertainment. But when I came out of film school, and I think because when I went to film school, it was such a great time for indie filmmakers in the 90s, especially in New York, and especially if you were from, a diverse background or demographic. And so I saw all these filmmakers making these films, and I just thought I could do that too. So when I graduated from school, I just thought you just went out and made films, or you went out and you applied for that TV writing job, because I always thought it was about the work, right? If the work is good, right, then you will find a job. And the reality is it's not that way. It is a lot of who do you know who will hire you, right? It's not even enough who you know. I know people, but will they hire me? And also, do those people value stories from my particular point of view? Because when I tell a story, especially if it's something personal to me, it is going to be told from someone who's a woman, who is Black, who grew up in New York City, who had 2 babies when she was a teenager, who grew up, at ground zero for crack cocaine epidemic in the early 80s. And so, to me, that's an asset. But we can see, the thing about TV and film is all documented. We can see that it is so much harder for someone to be a Black woman, or be a woman of color and try to break in behind the camera in film and TV. You feel like, well, it should be about the work, right? I'm not on camera. It doesn't even matter how I look, right? Mm-hmm. I should be about the writing, or it should be about the directing. And it's not. It is really about, this kind of 90% white male industry protecting, white male mediocrity. So it's not even enough to be good. It's not even enough to be extra good. You have to be extra good, have someone superior vouching for you, and then you still have to do the twice as amount of work. And so I think that's been unfortunate, but I think what helped me when I first got out of school was that I was so naive to that I was kind of just up in people's faces, like, hey, read my script. Hey, you have a job opening? And I think because I was so, what's the word? So direct, I think, maybe even a little aggressive, because I felt like, hey, I graduated. I know how to do this stuff. Hire me. I think that helped to get people's attention. Um, but what I'm realizing now is that as you get older, the things that made you successful, right, when you were younger, like me being just happy to be there and in someone's face and ready to do any job they had, right, that made me successful, but that wasn't going to make me successful 10 years later or 20 years later. So, and I think I didn't figure out quick enough how to adjust. And so because I didn't adjust, and when the job started going away, I became very disillusioned. I was really like, I hate entertainment, and entertainment is business. And I'm never going to work in entertainment again. But what I realized too is that passes. Because the thing that we love about doing film or doing TV or doing digital content, that thing still stays with you. That love still stays with you, and I think it has to, because it's the only thing that sustains you when there's like no work, or your agent drops you, or you're up against another writer, for a show, and of course the writer with the better references gets the gig, even though their script is probably not as good.
So what would you say is your biggest challenge that you had to overcome?
Um, I think my biggest challenges, I think, have really been, I would say, it's, some of it is just the industry, and some of it is personal as well. Like, I love TV. I mean, I love it. Like, love it. And I would love to write full time for TV, but it's really difficult to do that while I live in New York, and my life has never been set up to move to LA. It never has. And even though we have a lot, I mean, we literally have a record number of shows being shot on the East Coast in the tri-state area, the issue is not all of the writing teams are here. The writing teams are still back in LA. And there are shows here, but once again, it's such a small pool of shows, and you have all these writers, clamoring for those gigs, not just TV writers, but also the playwrights that are here, and also people who used to live in LA, but now they want to come back to New York. So it's kind of like, sometimes I feel like I just can't catch a break. The other challenge I would say is also just resources, money. I would love to take every little extra bit of money that I have, which I don't, and make my indie film or make my indie web series. But it's hard to keep that going, especially like when you have people depending on you. And you want to eat, I just can't just eat, 99-cent pizza every day like I did when I was younger. And so I think resources as well has been a huge challenge for me. I used to think, oh, if I got the right agent, or if I got the right manager, or if I wrote the most I don't know, on topic, spec script, that I would make it. And you just can't. That's not a strategy, And the industry, yes, they want new voices, but they're not actually, gonna just open up the doors for you. And I just realized, what, I have to stop looking for that outside validation and make the stuff that I care about. And then if these things come to me, like say an agent, a manager, or a studio, great. But if not, I'm fine with making indie content that I do.
And do you enjoy doing your indie content?
I do. I used to be one of those people where I said I hated directing. all through film school. I went to undergrad film school at SVA. I went to graduate film school at Columbia University, and I hated directing. But when I was like, okay, I gotta direct my own stuff, I got used to it. Like, I was really like, oh, I hate this. This is so hard. And literally everybody's coming at you because you're eventually the final decision maker. And I'm kind of like, I don't know, whatever you think. Um, but I always say, like, oh, this is the most horrible experience of my life. I'm never going to direct again. And I'm not even kidding you. Like, 6 months later, I'm planning the next short film. So what I enjoy is pretending I don't like directing what I do. And I love working on web series. I love digital stuff. Seriously, if I could walk around with a laptop just pointing it at people and making them watch YouTube shows or Vimeo shows, I would. Just like a crazy person walking on the street. Like, look at this! Watch this! This is good! You'll never see something like this on TV. I would. I love independent TV content. I'm a huge fan of, like, just pushing past the gatekeepers. There's too many gatekeepers in this industry that are acting in bad faith and are keeping people, especially people from marginalized groups, out. And what I love about digital distribution is that it's an equalizer. Your gatekeeper is actually finding your audience. And if you're making authentic content and you know who's in your immediate network, like friends and family, it's always friends and family. Those are your first audience. If you can build from that, you will find an audience from your content, as long as it's authentic and truthful. And you keep marketing it, just going out there and pushing that show, especially on social media, you will find your audience that really wants to see that content, because they're ignored by mainstream television. They're ignored by mainstream film. So that part I'm so excited about. I'm telling you, when YouTube was invented, 1,000 years ago, 2006, and also just digital video in general, I was just, oh my gosh, I felt like I was a little kid again. I felt like I was like a little kid when, like, your grandfather gave you money to go to the record store. I was just like, this is the best thing ever. And now all the technology is catching up where your stuff can look beautiful. I mean, your stuff can look like anything comparable to what's coming out of Hollywood. And once again, I had a great cinematography teacher say that glass is glass, meaning lenses. He's like, it doesn't matter. The technology catches up, but a beautiful lens is going to be a beautiful lens, no matter what you put behind it. And I always think about that, like, you know what? The beauty is in the story you're telling. It doesn't necessarily have to look beautiful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you say that online video content is kind of taking over the media world. How do you think the two compare from television and, say, YouTube series?
Well, I think from what I've seen, even from the early days of web series, going back to the early 2000s, pretty much. And also, I used to watch web video even way back in, like, the 90s when you had the dial-up. And it took an hour to watch 1 minute of something. I think the shows that do well digitally are not trying to do TV. TV has a certain format. It just does. It's a built-in format that pretty much hasn't changed since the invention of television, right? You got the half-hour format, you have the 60-minute format. And there's a certain kind of structure, a storytelling structure that these shows have. And if you're a TV creator, you're kind of stuck within those parameters. Um, the people who are successful in the digital world, I think, are not trying to do TV, right? TV is there. They'll be just fine, you know? They're, they have an opportunity to kind of make their own format. Also make, also interact with their audience in a way that you can't with TV. I think also too, because we are watching content on a screen that big, that the rules of TV, don't apply. If you're not going to catch that audience within the first 30 seconds, sometimes you'll get 60. They're just one click away from watching something else. So you cannot do the same creative rules that you find in television. So I think a lot of the experimentation going on and figuring out the format, because the web is still the Wild West, which I love. It is. It is just like, we just did it and then figured out how to do it on the next show, right? And so I think what people are realizing is, yes, certain content works better digitally than other content. But that doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means that you're going to have to do a lot of work reaching out to your audience. Like, comedy does really well on digitally at the bite-sized comedy. I would say anything between 1 and 3 minutes. But I'm a drama writer. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, I'm a drama writer. Comedy seems to do very well. I have to figure out how to do drama, tell a complete story, and keep the audience, right? So I tell people do whatever show they want digitally if they have the resources, but also figure out a formula that's going to sustain them, that's going to help them keep making episodes and keep gaining audience. But if you can you imagine trying to put like a 22-minute comedy on YouTube and you're not Seinfeld, right? And you're like, watch this for 22 minutes. It's just not going to happen. So I think this is an opportunity to remake the rules and understand that YouTube or Vimeo content is not HBO and ABC content.
So what advice do you give to people interested in the film industry? Writing, directing?
Well, I think, you have to figure out that thing that you want to be an expert in. Now, I'm not saying don't try everything. I think you should at least know the language of every area of film and entertainment. But I think you need to pick one thing and be an expert in it. People are like, oh, I want to direct, and I want to edit, and I want to make music, and I want to act. And I'm like, whoa, right? I think you should do all those things, but I think you should always have the one thing that you can point to say, I am an expert in this. I think also learning the language, learn how to communicate about film is very important. I don't necessarily believe that you need to go to college for that. Not that I'm discouraging people from attending college, but college is a commitment, and college is very expensive. And if you're going into a film program, it's almost double what tuition plus what you have to pay to make your stuff. So I tell people, if you can't afford to go to film school, that's fine. Kind of just, take a class, take a workshop, build your own curriculum almost. Like, you can do that. You can just sit there with a piece of loose leaf paper and say, you know what, I think I want to take this weekend workshop on TV writing. And you know what, I want to make my own web series, so I should know something about directing. Maybe I'll take this certificate program and, how to direct actors. I think is so much flexibility now that probably wasn't there when I went to film school in the early '90s. You know, so I'm a fan of going to college, but if that is not a reality for you, then build your own, make your own school, as I say. um, but I do think that because people of color, we always have to have extra validation, like I said. I do think in certain areas, college, having that piece of paper becomes important. Like I rarely talk about where I went to graduate school. I went there, I had a miserable time, I hated it, and I couldn't wait to graduate. But Columbia University looks good on a piece of paper, and there's no denying that. Sometimes I spend, whatever, my first 2 minutes telling everybody my bio, and the only thing they hear is Columbia University. Because they're looking at me like, this black woman went to Columbia University, on a scholarship. So I think if you can go to college and you enjoy college and you're going to get something out of it that's going to move you forward, go for it. If that's not a reality, make your own film school.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Then anything else?
No, that's it for now. Do you have any final comments to share?
No. Just happy to help you out.
Thank you.
And are you showing this to like another class?
Yes, I'm showing this to a professor, and it's gonna be uploaded on YouTube, my YouTube account, and they're gonna see it. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, to your other professor, she's a great student in my class.
Thank you.
So, just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you. Right. Have a good day. Goodbye.
You too.